Today on Riverside Strong, we'll explore memory care and how Riverside is leading the way in providing support for those who experience memory loss and for those who love and care for them. While memory issues can be a normal part of aging, more severe memory loss associated with Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, and other conditions is growing. Over 150,000 people in Virginia now have dementia, serious loss of memory and cognition, and that number is expected to grow to 190,000 by 2025. We'll look at causes of memory loss, at options for care at home and in residential memory care centers, and at resources that provide critical support for patients and caregivers. We'll also visit with some remarkable caregivers who will share their experiences. This and so much more on this episode of Riverside Strong.
Adversity, disasters, emergencies, crisis. These are not the things that create character. No, these are the times, the moments that reveal character. You know what it also reveals? Compassion, empathy, humor, creativity, innovation, kindness, perseverance, knowledge, and strength. Perhaps strength most of all. We are Riverside Strong.
Welcome to Riverside Strong, where we examine a wide array of medical issues and learn from the medical professionals who treat them. I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson. Today, we will look at Riverside's ongoing support throughout the journey of memory loss through the eyes of both the caregivers and our care team.
One of the things that happens to most people as they age is our brain shrinks a little bit. And there's a certain amount of that brain shrinkage that is normal. As a result of that, many people will experience something that we call normal aging memory loss. You're able to manage the business of your life, but you can be forgetful. The next category of memory loss is what we call dementia.
Dementia is the process that describes the loss of cognitive function and memory. It is not just simply memory. Some people lose their ability to speak. Some people lose their ability to manage visual spatial relationships, so they cannot drive a car, they cannot make a decision. Dementia is the umbrella that covers all aspects of cognitive loss. Alzheimer's is one type of that.
The time to seek treatment is when you are wondering if you're having problems. If you notice changes in yourself, you feel like you're not quite yourself, that's when you need to talk about, your concerns with your primary care.
Anything that's outside of the norm, you want to put that on the provider's radar so they can start to develop a baseline and they can start to identify and start to examine what could be causing this. It's not always dementia. It could be something else that is treatable and that can be cured.
I want to know if you ever had a stroke. I want to know what medications you're on. I want to know if you drink alcohol, and if so, how much. I want to know if you're depressed. I want to know if you have any other medical condition, such as heart disease, previous stroke, like I said, head injury, or any other kind of trauma that you might have had. Anxiety, depression, in other words, both psychological and physical trauma to the body.
Hi, how are you? Hi, good, how are you? It's very important to have a family member or someone who knows the person very well at the initial visit, because sometimes people don't always present what they know to be true, which may or may not be totally accurate.
I started to notice some subtle changes in Russell. Russell's always been an outgoing person and a go-getter and, let's go do this, let's go do that, drop everything, let's go. And that started to change a little bit. But then I started seeing simple things that I knew that he could do, that he was really struggling with. Conversations that we had, and he couldn't remember the conversations. The physician checked over some of his medication, and I think he kind of red flagged one of them. And, my husband was like, nope, everything's good, we're fine. And the physician turned around and looked at him and he said, "How long have you been married?" And he was like, "Oh, a long time." He said, "Well, Mr. Staten, if anybody knows you, it's your wife. So if she says something is a little different, something's a little different." And from that point, that's where the scheduling started, going to the neurologist and things like that.
But again, you can see diagnosing dementia is not just one thing. It's all pieces of the puzzle that we put together to give our best diagnostic impression of what the problem is and how best to treat it.
We establish the diagnosis based on the story, that the pattern of progression is similar to what we see with other patients with Alzheimer's disease, as opposed to a stepwise progression like you see with strokes. The absence of other features like Parkinson's disease or hallucinations like Lewy body disease, and absence of any other medical condition that we can identify. Anemia, B12 deficiency, thyroid disease.
The treatment of dementia depends on what the cause of it is. And if someone has post-stroke cognitive impairment, then we make sure that people are on the right medicines to reduce their risk factors for having another stroke. Medications for Alzheimer's disease specifically help stabilize and slow down memory loss. Nothing cures the disease itself, but what we're hoping to do is to slow down decline as much as possible.
There are things that we do that have helped patients live longer. If you exercise, if you control your blood pressure, if you control your cholesterol, if you diet in a healthy way, you can potentially slow down the progression of dementia or even prevent it. That allows them to stay at home longer, stay engaged longer with their family, stay active longer.
People that are diagnosed with dementia have very unique journeys ahead of them. We like to say that if you've met one person living with dementia, you've met one person, because everyone's trajectory is a little different. Unfortunately, we can't give a good prognosis and life expectancy because it is so different for everyone. And I know that that's really frustrating for families. What I do like to tell families is that the goal is to help your loved one be the best they can be for as long as they can be. And this is how we're going to do it.
Strength of a community, strength of family, strength of a team. You will find these strengths at Riverside, where we have built senior living communities, facilities, and services centered around our residents and our patients, where the atmosphere feels more like family than facility, where our care teams are dedicated to you and your loved ones. Our senior living services are designed around you living your best life. Call us or go online to learn more today. We're Riverside Strong.
Serious memory loss brings with it the need for care. Whether that care is at home provided by a caregiver or provided in a residential memory care program at one of the specialized Riverside senior living communities. Our team works with patients and their caregivers to not only think about their current needs, but to create plans for the next stages of their journey.
Once he was officially diagnosed, it was overwhelming because I really didn't know what to expect or where we were headed. Very emotional in that I just couldn't really control, how I was feeling.
Jim was in his mid-40s when he was finally diagnosed. And I remember looking at the doctor and saying, what does that mean? What do? We have young kids at home.
When someone is diagnosed with a dementia, one of the things that I will do is try to get the person connected with our social worker and to get them set up with our memory care clinic, which is a interdisciplinary team to help be very proactive and to help get people connected with community services and community resources.
It is overwhelming, it's scary. They feel very isolated, they feel very distant from others. They might even be embarrassed to talk to their own family or other individuals about their caregiving role. So if we can help bring them kind of from that isolation into linking with some services, whether they're here at Riverside or with a number of our other community partners, that really helps that family caregiver feel a little more connected with a community that really does care about them.
I decided, working with the memory clinic and the professionals, that they could help me through this process or help us through this process. So it was just learning, listening, asking questions, reading, understanding, and coming out of my own little bubble, if you will, that I had to be a little bit more brave than I was, because it wasn't just being brave for myself, it was being brave for both of us and for our family.
We do community-based memory cafes, social opportunities. We want to help someone live their absolute best life despite the cognitive impairment.
We joined a support group. We were the only people with him still working at the time in the support group, and we were definitely the youngest ones. But the support group was so helpful. The other families were still going through the same worries, the same problems of trying to figure out where to turn to for help and what to do with whatever steps were going to be coming at us next.
The Memory Cafe was first and foremost. There was this camaraderie for him, for myself, but then for the two of us together as a couple. And it gave him an opportunity to be with people that were like him. And I knew that he was safe, and I could go and sit down with the caregivers and we could talk and share.
The best approach is for me to approach each family individually to find out what matters, what do they need, what's important to them, and how are they responding to this particular disease. And if we're good, we're getting 2 or 3 steps ahead of them, knowing where they're going and providing resources ahead of when they need them, so they're not surprised or caught off guard by what can happen.
We do have a resource room that is specific to aging services and to memory loss. And so individuals are welcome to come and walk through the resource room and pick up materials at their convenience, or meet with someone on our team and we'll walk through the resource room with them, talk about different categories of resources, companion services or respite care in the home. Are we looking at a different living environment because they're no longer safe in their home? How do you consider the different facilities or other communities of care option? What about educational resources? What about legal and financial resources? What about palliative care or hospice care at end of life?
I married the love of my life, Martha Carter White, in 1983. And we settled in the Riverside area, Newport News. We raised Emily, Caroline, and Charlie. She drove carpool. She was a member of the junior league. She joined the garden club, and she was just involved in the community activities. And Martha was the one that made our house into a home. It just sort of snuck up on us. I was noticing things that just didn't seem right. Her ability to find her way home from her parents' house in Williamsburg. I never even dreamed it would be dementia or Alzheimer's. And we did a memory test, and the results weren't good. And all I can say, it was devastating. Martha was experiencing anxiety, and the anxiety turned into psychosis. And we had a major event, a psychotic event, on a Sunday afternoon. The police were involved. I had to take her to the hospital. She had to be sedated. I had to let go. I had to move Martha to a facility. It was hard, but it was absolutely the right decision for us.
I think moving a loved one into a memory care is a big decision for the family. A lot of thought goes into it, and there's a lot of trust that needs to be built between the team and the family. We don't have visiting hours. You can check in on your loved one whenever you want to. We have multiple resources in our memory care. Art therapy, we have an exercise specialist that will come in and work with our residents. One of our favorite activities off campus is taking a scenic bus ride down the Colonial Parkway. Our residents love that. We also have household mentors that are specially trained in activities to make sure everyone's days are full and that they stay active, they stay busy, and they stay engaged. Some of our memory cares have what's called a snoozlin room, a multi-sensory room for both calming and also stimulation. This may be sound therapy or aromatherapy, and there's multiple things that they can engage with in the room.
If we can help the family see that in many cases this is a brain disease, it's not something that the person with the diagnosis has control over, then you tend to see caregivers light up a little bit and understand that this really isn't the person with memory loss trying to make their life more difficult, that the person with memory loss is just having a more difficult time right now. If it is a progressive type of memory loss like Alzheimer's disease, they may lose their ability to communicate in the way you and I would. They may have trouble finding the right words or being able to recognize an object and name it accordingly, or recognize us as friends or as family members, or be able to refer to us by name. And so that's a part of the education process for the caregivers, is this is what may happen as the disease progresses.
Often caregivers will say, my husband can no longer talk, so we can't communicate. Communication is more than just words. It's not only what I say, but how I say it. It's my expression, it's my body language, it's do I lean in. So even though I may not be able to verbally speak, I can still communicate. So making sure that caregivers know that your loved one is telling you something, even when they're not using language to tell you that. They may start rocking back and forth. They may start humming. They may start pacing. All of those are indicators of a potential need. I could be hungry. I could be in pain. I may need to go to the bathroom. I may be bored. Everything that someone's doing is another form of communication.
I think through going through the classes, that's one of the things that I had to understand. I had to pay attention to the body language. Sometimes he may not be able to communicate or get those words out. So I have to figure out a way, so whether it's a touch or identifying something in the room, or you know what, let's just sit down and we'll figure it out later. We took a dance class. And it was ballroom dancing. It was something I always wanted to do. And he was like, I don't want to do ballroom dance. I was like, oh, it's gonna be so much fun. And the one thing that I noticed immediately was the touch, because ballroom dancing is about touching, and you know, your space is kind of limited in some movements. And I noticed his reaction was a little bit different. It was like the old Russell was coming out. You know, he had this little two-step that he would do, and I was like, okay. It was a happy time for me, but it was also a happy time because I could see him. You know, he's still there. Every time we go outside, we hold hands. We hold hands no matter what. Or I might put my arm around him, and sometimes he might, you know, put his arm around me, and I'm like, oh.
We're Riverside Strong.
One of the hardest tasks caregivers face is caring for themselves. Statistics show too frequently that caregivers neglect their own needs to take care of their loved one, and the physical, emotional, and financial strains can be overwhelming.
Family caregivers provide an unbelievable amount of caregiving in this country. I think the last statistic I saw on that was it was in the billions of dollars of care that family caregivers provide.
Support for caregivers is essential because the caregiver or care partner needs to know about the disease. They need to become a fierce advocate. They have to be taught how to take care of themselves. And then they have to be taught how to see a life beyond their caregiver duties.
About 10 years ago, we brought Caring for You, Caring for Me here to the greater Williamsburg area, and it's pretty much expanded to the entire region, almost really nearly statewide. It's a program for family caregivers regardless of the individual that they're caring for, the kind of condition. So it's not specific to memory loss. It's part of one of the reasons I really like it, because I think it's just flexible to any type of family caregiver for an older relative. We modified it to very brief lessons that we call micro-learning lessons. They're less than 10 minutes apiece, and individuals can watch those through the Riverside YouTube channel.
The data and the research is showing us that caregivers are going down ahead of the person impacted by Alzheimer's disease and dementia, because they just are setting their needs aside to provide for their loved ones.
I also had to learn to start taking better care of myself. I couldn't stay up 2 days or 2 nights in a row and not rest. I couldn't miss meals. I had to make sure I went to the doctor for my own, just, routine exams and things like that. It's really, very important because if I'm not 100%, I can't help him. I can't help him. I will fail.
I focus on the caregiver in the latter part of the disease to make sure that they find the time for themselves, that they use the respite care, they use the adult daycare, they use all of those resources that are available in the community in order to get some personal downtime alone.
We found a respite care facility in the Williamsburg area that was wonderful, and he looked forward to going there every day. He wanted to go to his respite care and have fun. He would say, can I go to that place? Am I going to that place today? And he just loved it.
You have to be careful about telling someone who already feels overwhelmed to take care of themselves. It just can go right over their head, or it doesn't sound like it has the intention that you meant or the meaning that you meant.
Having people who accept that they don't understand exactly what you're going through and accept that you're doing the best you possibly can at that very moment is what any of us need at any given time. But in this journey, especially with Alzheimer's and dementia, you really can't even fathom what somebody's going through unless you've been through it yourself. And even then, every situation is so different. So whether you have small children at home or not, you're losing your best friend right before your eyes, and you never know what the day is going to bring you when you wake up that morning. And you can feel very isolated, you can feel very alone.
If as a caregiver you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the person that you love. We know that there are about 1 in 5 caregivers that predecease the person that they're caring for. So it's really important to have a plan in place in case the caregiver would become ill.
So do you have a plan B or plan C in place to make sure that if you can't do this day in and day out, that there are some other individuals that you can call on or other agencies or services. And maybe someone can help with the finances, maybe someone is helping with the lawn care or other household maintenance, maybe someone is just checking in to make sure that you're okay or dropping off a meal or a friendly note every now and then. Your doctor and your loved one's doctor should be a part of your care team. They need to know that you are a caregiver and you need to identify as such because it's such a critical role and it does impact your health.
The most important message that I like to leave with caregivers, it is planning. Planning ahead, making sure that all of your wishes are known. No one knows me better than me, so I need to make sure those wishes are known. Do my family know what I want? Does my provider know what I want? We have a memory care navigator, and her job is to help families navigate through that process. And she broaches those very difficult but necessary conversations with families.
We are Riverside Strong.
Every journey with memory loss is unique. The memory care team at Riverside treats the whole patient and partners with their caregivers to ensure the best quality of life in their journey. A generous donation is enabling Riverside to expand the scope and reach of their programs.
My vision for the Martha Goodson Center is for Riverside to be able to provide the same kind of support that they provided for Martha and I in our walk through this journey with dementia.
We have a great love at Riverside Health System for the care of those experiencing memory loss and the caregivers who are supporting them. Philanthropy helps fill that need or the gap between what might be reimbursable care that we provide and what we know in our heart is the right thing to do. What is wonderful on our horizon is through the generosity of the Goodson family in honor of Martha, we have the ability to take wonderful, individually well-played instruments and actually make it a complete orchestra for those that are experiencing memory loss. Some of the components of that we're so excited about is that early detection. in treatment. It's the support right at the beginning so we can walk with that family and loved one all through the journey of memory care and loss.
The center will offer education to families and persons impacted by the disease, supportive services and resources, evidence-based programming that can be leveraged all over Virginia, support for providers, support for first responders. It will become a resource, information, and education hub for folks impacted by Alzheimer's disease and dementia. This team is working with frontline staff all across the Riverside network to not only raise their awareness about the impact of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, but also how it's impacting their patients and the families that they are supporting. We're offering tips, tools, and strategies in micro-learning sessions, 10-minute snippets of here's what you can say to support this family, or here's a way that you can adjust your approach to mitigate the response of an individual that might be negative otherwise. It will also house the driver rehabilitation program, a comprehensive geriatric assessment center, all within the walls of the center.
It's a terrible disease. It will just wear you down. And so many people are so busy, so worn down, so frazzled trying to keep up that they don't realize that there are resources out there like Riverside has that can help you build your team, help you find care, help you navigate so your loved one will actually have a better life during this just terrible time for them.
Our ultimate goal is to make sure that the dignity and respect that they have had their whole life is remained whole through the whole journey of memory loss.
You are not alone. If you are living with this disease or any other issues as it relates to caregiving, you are not alone. There are millions of caregivers across the nation, and Riverside and their dedicated team are committed to supporting you no matter where you are in the journey, no matter where you are in the process. We are here to help you. Not just help you, to walk alongside you and to support you.
For more information about memory care support, visit us online at riversideonline.com/memorycare. And that completes this episode of Riverside Strong. For more information on Riverside Health System services and providers, please visit riversideonline.com. Missed our past episodes? Catch them all on yourview.com. Until next time, stay healthy and stay informed with Riverside Strong.
We're Riverside Strong.